Okay.
Yes, please, Geshe,
Okay.
whenever you're ready. Yes.
Yeah, I can no longer see you, Eduardo. You disappeared in that beautiful landscape. Oh no, I can see the top of your head. Okay, now I saw you. Okay. All right, let's continue with the last verses. We got to. Oh, I meant to say something about this one verse I didn't understand, but it's actually pretty straightforward. Let me just go back to it. I think it was 60. No, there was no it was totally straightforward actually. Those without desire have no pleasure. So the liberated do not experience pleasure while focusing on women, and nor do those not foolish have it. So those who are not foolish, I got confused with the not. I somehow thought it was those foolish, but actually no. Those who are not foolish in the sense that have overcome they're in tune with reality, either they're totally liberated or at least they have an understanding of reality. Well, they do not experience pleasure while focusing on the body of women. It's not necessary for them to experience pleasure based on that. So that's all it means. So the second line really, it's those who are not foolish. Somehow I got it mixed up. I guess I was the only one not understanding it anyway, so no problem, but I thought to mention it anyway. Great. So then we can go back to 92, I believe was the last verse we read. Is that right? I think we read 92.
Yes,
Yep.
yes,
Yep.
yes, we did.
Great. Thank you. All right. Then 93 is you, the king, guardian of the people, have no guardian yourself. Since your guardianship does not release you, who would be happy? So, in other words, we may wish to have certain positions to be in power. It's the good old attachment, the good old craving for power, but you're totally exposed. So, in a sense, we've got nothing to protect us if we are in that situation. So, to be aware of that, having no guardian ourselves. So, we become the guardian of other people, but we've got no one to protect us, and we are much more vulnerable. So, do we really want that? That is the price we pay for having power. And our guardianship, having guardianship for other people, does not release us from the non virtuous actions we accumulate. So, therefore, it does not release us from actual suffering, though our craving may suggest that to us. Our craving may somehow suggest. So, it suggests, it's hard to say. It's like these types of mind, they present our reality, they present a situation to us that unless we become aware of these misconceptions, unless we become aware that they don't conceive things as they actually exist, we may be fooled by them and act accordingly. So therefore, a king, well, if a king seeks protection. I was just thinking in the break about this word taking refuge. I did talk about it briefly in as part of the previous verses. We should take refuge mainly in the Dharma. And just something that came to mind when we think about the word, when we take that word taking refuge, it's actually not the translation of at least the Tibetan term. It doesn't mean you seek refuge. It's, I guess the word was used as a term that translates the Tibetan word kyamdro. It was actually because, well, when you say refugee, it has that Tibetan word in it where you actually just say you seek protection. So you go for protection. You go, that's what it means. You go for protection. That's the word for refuge. And actually what it means is that when we take refuge in the Dharma, so taking refuge in Buddha and Sangha doesn't mean that they can actually protect us. So it's not that they protect us. What protects us is the Dharma. How does it protect us? Well, there are methods. There are methods to overcome our problems. And if we apply these methods in that way, we seek protection in the Dharma. So it's really just looking at getting to know the techniques that are described there and then applying them just like medicine. If we present it with a type of medicine, we take the medicine and it helps us to get better, well, we sought protection in medicine. And we do this all the time automatically. When we have a problem, we seek a solution in certain means, in certain methods. Maybe eating a bar of chocolate may release our problem. That's all right. From Buddhist point of view, there's no problem. Take refuge in chocolate if you like. But but you may also choose to take a method that is described in the Dharma that may actually help with this particular problem. And usually our problems are quite similar. I mean, the situation may be different, but our fears, our anxieties, our worries, I mean, it doesn't matter where you're born, where you were raised. Basically, these emotions, anger, etc., different things trigger them, but the emotions are pretty similar. Therefore, it universally works what's described here in Buddhist psychology. And the point is not become Buddhist or whatever. Well, the point is just seek protection. And if you call yourself a Buddhist or not, who cares? If you apply these methods, actually, from Buddhist point of view, the moment you apply these methods, you're automatically seen as Buddhist. But it's not so much about the what's it called, the label. It's just giving the label or not. In the end, it's like humans deciding calling someone a Buddhist or not, and it's not necessary to apply a further label. It's about, are these methods helpful? I take what I can and leave the rest if I don't find that helpful. But that's really the meaning of taking refuge, seeking, applying the methods of Buddhism. That's what it means. So I just meant to mention that. And also in the case of the king, guardian of the people, well, who guards? What guards the king? Well, if the king applies the Dharma, then there is a guardian, something that protects his mind. Those are the methods that help the king to reduce his own afflictions, and in that way he receives protection. But if not that, then what is going to protect the king? All right. Then it goes on to say in 94, though a king is famous after his death, it will bring no benefit. Do you, being worthless, and those who cook dogs not have notoriety? Um, the word for famous in English, you don't say famous. The word is not used. It's notorious, like kind of infamous. It's a different word for fame. You can use the word fame, but in Tibetan, it's in both cases, you're well known. So though a king is well known after his death, that will bring no benefit. You can be well known for all sorts of reasons. Doesn't mean it benefits you. So well known or fame, notoriety. In Tibetan, it's actually the same word. In the first two lines, the word famous and the word notoriety. In Tibetan, it's chakpa, which means kind of being well known. So what does this verse teach us? Well, this whole thing about leaving a legacy. It's so bizarre how often rulers, they're so eager to leave a legacy. It's almost like this fear of totally disappearing after they die, which they don't. But in a way, well, it's all forgotten. From a Buddhist point of view, they continue to live, but they no longer know they were that person. So it's almost like it's almost like this wish for immortality. If I have to die, at least I leave behind a legacy. And people make a great effort in leaving a legacy, but what's the point? It doesn't help because in the end, you don't know it was you. And if it happens naturally because you're a great person, wonderful. But if we're totally attached to just leaving this fame behind, this posthumous kind of fame, well, it does not purify any misdeeds. So even those who have no qualities and who mistreat and torture and cook dogs, I don't know where this comes from, the dogs. There must have been someone quite notorious at the time, maybe cooking and torturing dogs. Anyway, may gain some fame, some become well known for their cruel actions, but this does not mean they purify their negativity. So fame can be for different reasons. Being well known can be for different reasons, and that's not necessarily a good reason. And it doesn't mean anything. Name and fame, they are so meaningless. They can be meaningful, but they're not meaningful in themselves. When are they meaningful? Well, someone like His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I mean, there are these great lamas who have an incredible amount of faith. And they want, sorry, incredible amount of fame. And they want that fame, not for their own sake. No, because then more people are drawn to them. And if they have things to say that people find beneficial, if they can really benefit others, their fame is wonderful. They can really make a difference. Of course, if they use that fame in the wrong way, can greatly harm others. But motivated by love and compassion, then fame is something beneficial. But motivated by attachment and so forth, well, it doesn't mean anything. In fact, it can actually harm us more than it benefits us. And we have this sense, oh, if I was just famous, if I was just famous, more people knew about me. It's kind of like the self centered mind that believes it gets even more gratification if more people know the self. It's a bizarre, if we watch this desire, it's so bizarre what we want. We just want this self grasping to be enhanced. That's all we wish for. So, more gratification, more emphasis on the I, on the I. And of course, that's harming us so much more because the stronger the self grasping mind gets, the stronger the self cherishing mind gets, the self centeredness, the more we suffer. So we're wishing for fame, we're wishing for greater suffering, really. But of course, we can use it in a different way. Now, being posthumously, being famous after one's death, leaving a legacy, it doesn't mean anything. You can no longer benefit people in that form. Of course, in the case of the Buddha, yeah, the Buddha left behind the teachings. Now, his fame, fame that's lasted, well, 2,600 years and will continue at least for some time, that gets people, like you have nowadays Buddhas standing in garden. Like every garden store has a Buddha now in Germany. Um, so I don't know. First, I was kind of against it, but then I thought, well, it makes the Buddha famous. And if the Buddha is famous, people associate it with calmness and mindfulness and so forth. Well, it may lead them to the Buddha's teachings, and then the fame is useful. All right. Okay, so if it's utilized for the benefit of sentient beings, but fame in itself, well, anyone can be famous doing cruel things anyway. All right, then 95. When all power and wealth are produced by merit, it cannot be said that this one will not be a basis for power and wealth. Now, power and wealth, they're actually the result of positive actions. We may believe my power and my wealth, it's my great qualities. I'm so special. It's because I'm special. It's somehow, it seems that power and wealth are the result of self cherishing. Um, I don't know. In Germany right now, there are a lot of stories about a certain politician. Well, we all know I'm talking about, but well, never mind. So this person who his whole life he was just selfish, 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 and now he's the most powerful person in the world and doesn't want to give up his power. So the what's so bizarre is that he probably believes all his success is his selfishness, and other people may believe the same thing, believing that the more selfish you are, the more successful you get. But that is totally misunderstanding karma and its effect, because if he hadn't, at some point, whenever that was, hard to believe it was any time, was recently, but at some point in the past, he must have accumulated virtue, great virtuous actions that put him in the position that despite his selfishness, now this karma ripened in such a way that he has a lot of power and wealth. He may be on its way out right now, but the point is, for a long time, he became, well, he was quite relatively successful and known, if you like. Well, maybe not in terms of his economic dealings, but the point is, he made it to become the most powerful person in the world. So now people may believe it's his selfishness, but that would mean that anyone who's selfish should become president of the United States. So that certainly doesn't happen, and that's the great misunderstanding. This is just, it was one of the conditions, but it wasn't that selfishness as such, it was the energy he put into it. Now, this is really important in terms of karma. Karma is really hard to understand, mainly because it doesn't work out just from the point of view of one lifetime. Um, Geshe Kelsang, he talks about this, how in this teaching I mentioned earlier, how the Four Noble Truths can be explained from the point of view of just one lifetime. So in that context, he gives a quote from the Buddha where he says that a karmic action in this lifetime, it can have a slight ripening, but that karmic ripening can be described, that can be or can be compared to a seed. So the karmic action is the seed, and that ripens into a seedling, like a little sprout, a little seedling, like the little green thing that grows out of a seed. That is to the extent of which a karmic action can actually ripen in the form of a result of that karmic action. But then in the next lifetime, the full result will be experienced. There may be already some experience in this lifetime, but the full result will be experienced in the future. And that is like the plant itself and all the fruits it carries. So if you have a seed for a tree, for instance, in this lifetime, you experience a result. You don't have to, but you can experience a result that equals a little seedling. Okay. And that's talking about a karmic result. That is not talking of the result. For instance, if you're a kind person and people like you for it, that is not seen as a karmic result. That is not seen as a karmic result. That is just so the karma of being kind to people and then people liking you, being liked by other people is the karmic result of a different action in a previous life. It could in some cases be the karmic result of the action now, but this karmic action of being kind could just trigger another karma. So therefore, it doesn't mean that when you are nice that people necessarily like you. So because if that was the karmic result, it would always have to happen, but it doesn't. This is why karma is so hard to really fathom, because it's not like an instant cause and an instant result. That'd be so much easier than to understand karma. It just takes time. Sometimes it takes many lifetimes, which of course actually in the space of endless lifetimes is relatively short. Now, as I said, karma can ripen in this lifetime. There's a tiny result of that can ripen. And as the Buddha himself said, that would be like a seedling. But in a future life, then the full result will come forth, and that will come forth in a way that's like a tree and its fruits. So it has a much greater, magnificent kind of result, which also accounts for the fact that, that karma magnifies whether virtues or non-virtues. Okay. Now, having said that, therefore, someone like a ruler, like a president of the United States, this power and this fame are the result of an action in the past. I mean, it's a huge result. It's big. It's not like a seedling, and it cannot come from just the virtue of this lifetime. It can only go back to the past and his effort. So it could be a result, like some results are such that the karma is such that you will experience the result without much effort. There are karmic results as a result of, for instance, generosity. When it ripens, it's the kind of result that you don't need to work for, you just have all the wealth you need. But there's also, depending on the action you accumulated of generosity, it may only ripen in wealth if you make an effort. So, in the case of like someone gaining a lot of power and wealth, well, in some cases, just the effort itself, whether it's dominated by selfishness and so forth, well, that's just the force that brings it about. But just that effort. So definitely, the current president made a lot of effort, and as a result, gained that power and wealth. So this karma actually ripened, but it is the result of virtuous action and not of selfishness. So let's not misunderstand, because otherwise every selfish person should become very wealthy and rich, and that certainly doesn't happen. In fact, the more selfish usually people are, the less successful they are. To a certain degree, yeah, they may be successful, but usually they're, well, pretty miserable, and other people don't like them. And this is quite unusual that someone can get away with that much selfishness, actually. Anyway, so, um, well, I'm in certain circles, a certain degree of selfishness may definitely be appreciated. I don't know, but the point is, I don't want to generalize here, and I don't know much enough about these circles. But my point is that we shouldn't confuse, we shouldn't believe that power and wealth are the result of selfishness and the kind of hard work that come from that. No, they're mainly the result of positive actions. And so, therefore, anyone can accumulate this virtue. And again, if we now in the position of power thinking, wow, I was so special, well, anyone who creates these causes and conditions can be in that position. So it doesn't make us any more special. Okay. And of course, whatever has to come up, whatever goes up has to come down again, as we learned in the first chapter. It's not lasting anyway. This we need to take into consideration anyway. All right. Now it goes on to say, that was 95, 96. In the world, caste is determined with regard to the main means of livelihood. There's no division among all sentient beings by way of caste. Okay. Now, this is an interesting verse where the word caste is used, but the Tibetan word, it could also translate into the type, the class we are. I mean, the word in Tibetan is not, it is used for caste, but it's also used for family, it's used for ethnicity, like human ethnicity. It's the word rik. So rik can mean caste, it can mean lineage, it can mean mirik, ethnicity or race, ethnicity, mirik. It can mean Sangye Girik, Buddha nature. So it has a huge, it can mean division, can mean classification, I mean type and so forth. It has huge meaning. So all I'm trying to say is here that although in English you had to, I mean, Ruth had to choose a particular word, so she chose the word caste, but she might as well take class. Might as well take, and that is true, excuse me, for other situations. So we actually live in the world where we classify between different races, different classes, different castes, depending on where you live. And the Tibetan word is all the same word, rik, rik, rik. And now, again, well, what's so important is that this distinction of caste, there's there's nothing intrinsic found in the person that makes that person be part of a different class. So when you think of royal blood, there's this idea of royal blood, like an aristocrat, in particular in the past in Europe. Well, this idea you should marry within the royal uh, lineage, if you like, because you're blue-blooded, this aristocratic blood. That's totally made up. There's nothing of that sort. So from a Buddhist point of view, that's just label. There's nothing within the person that makes that person in any way, well, makes that person in any way genetically belong to that royal caste. I mean, it's just a kind of job. If you do the job, you belong to that caste, and that's it. Of course, there are genetic differences between us, but caste and class do not determine them. Okay, so I think that's quite different. In particular, when in India, there are a huge problem because of the caste system that has become quite rigid now. And actually, there's a why, and it explains in the commentary, it talks about why we have these classes and these castes. So they're just man made. They're just man made. And they used to be a way to organize society, and it served as some kind of effective system in the past of passing down certain skills from one generation to the next, which means, well, in the past, they didn't have schools and institutes where children would go to and learn a certain skill and learn a certain craft, but instead it was their parents who taught them. And because of this caste system, it was so well organized. Society was organized according to this caste system, so that children belonged to a certain caste. It was clear what they're going to do. Their parents taught them. It was passed down. It was kind of easy to organize society. But maybe it's outlived its purpose now, and things are quite different now. Anyway, it causes quite a few problems nowadays, and class systems do too. And therefore here he's basically criticizing that in a way. Well, it's meant to help, to benefit people in the world. This caste, this differentiation between people, that's just man-made. That is just labeled. There is nothing that makes that person a royal person, that person a Brahmin, or whatever makes that person an aristocrat and that person a farmer. It's nothing in terms of their natural body. It's just how they were raised. That's it. And anyone can be raised differently. All right. So therefore, he's kind of um, strongly going against this division of people, classifying people, believing there's something from the side of the person that makes them inferior or superior. No, it's merely labeled in relation to certain aspects. And in 97, it says, okay, now this is a little interesting. It says, since it was very long ago and women's minds are fickle, there's no one from the caste known as the royal caste. Now, women's minds are fickle. Well, he's not saying men's minds are not fickle. Everyone's mind is fickle. However, traditionally, the caste was just determined by the man, what caste a person belongs to. And since our mind in general is fickle, so if a woman then decided, no, I don't want to be in my caste, there's no point, and maybe be even unfaithful, whatever. So her children are no longer part of a certain caste. They belong to a different caste because the caste is determined by the father of the children. Therefore, there's no pure caste as such. Um, yeah, so therefore, which means it's different to the Jewish tradition where it's the mother that passes down. So then the husband, if the husband is fickle, well, then the children would, right, then be part of the Jewish tradition and no longer part of the tradition of another. Well, like the Hindu tradition, for instance. Now, it just depends what determines that. So saying women's minds are fickle is saying everyone's mind is fickle, but in this case, women's minds uh, part of human society, and therefore, because it wasn't just always kept in the same caste, it's not even that you can say there are ethical differences. It could be possible, of course, that you have ethical differences. So, of course, if you're doing this for long enough and you just stay within the same caste, of course, there will be some ethical differences, just as geographically people, well, the origin of humankind was in Africa, as well, evolutionists believe or have proven. But then, because geographically there were different places that didn't intermix, and so different ethnicities evolved. So similarly, if you always remain in the same caste, well, then of course there may be differences, like certain bodily kind of characteristics that are found in one and not in the other. But that has nothing to do with like them being part of this caste. There's not like a specific Brahmin physical, I don't know, that makes them greater Brahmins and greater kings. No, there's nothing of that sort. They're just differences. So basically saying that it shows that because the castes weren't kept that pure, in a sense, pure not in a positive way, but just people just marrying within that caste, there's only be interchanged, and there is no pure caste as such anyway. This is just an illusion. So he's just saying, well, it happened a long time ago. There was a purpose for it, but because there was, of course, intermarriage between different castes, therefore you couldn't kind of determine just one person just be married in that caste, and therefore now there's no one from the caste who's really known as a royal caste. Okay, so then 1898, if even one of the common caste through his work could become royal caste, one might wonder why even the commoner should not become Brahmin through his work. So even a commoner could, through his work, become royal caste. Anyone doing the work of someone from the royal caste could become a member of the royal caste. I mean, it's just to do with the activities. So even an ordinary person could become a Brahmin, since the name of the caste are merely given to a person in relation to certain activities. So believing that you have to be this person, you can't not do it. I mean, that's just made up. That's just man-made. There's nothing to be found that is truly in that person that makes them a Brahmin. And Brahmin, of course, is the religious, the spiritual caste, so that there's something within people that within them that makes them spiritually part of the Brahmins. I mean, what would that be? What would that be? That's just man-made, and a lot of trouble arises from distinguishing between people and their different religions. Oh, this is a Brahmin, this is not. This person is inferior and superior. Well, no, this distinction just doesn't make sense. Why? Because we all have Buddha nature. We all have this one zik within us, that one type characteristic within us, which is the potential to become Buddhas. This we share. It's just the fact that we have a mind that can be transformed. Therefore, we call it Buddha nature. And that we definitely all have in common. All the other differences, they're totally superficial and they do not determine whether we're a spiritual person or not, whether we're a Brahmin or not. Okay. And whether we're a king or not, for that matter. And then 99, a king's ill deeds cannot be distributed like his wealth. What wise person ever destroys their future for another's sake? Now, a king may be able to give power and wealth to others, so making him special because he can distribute his power and wealth. But this is not a reason for arrogance. Why? Because the king cannot give away his non-virtues to others, but has to experience their effects. So the one thing we may want to give up, making us special, whatever, is giving up our non-virtues, but those can unfortunately not be distributed. And to what wise person would ever destroy their future for another's sake? Well, in the sense of uh, giving up our non-virtues. Who would give up these? Well, who would give up one's virtues for the sake of another person? Who would, something we also cannot distribute, but who would destroy their future for another's sake? So those things we can't give up and we wouldn't give up. All we can distribute are, well, wealth and power and so forth. In that sense, what really counts, what we really want to get rid of, well, those are the non-virtues. And who would take on the non-virtues of a king anyway? All right. So that's 99. And then the last verse, pride or arrogance caused by power and wealth. Once one has looked at others with equal or superior power, does not remain in the hearts of the wise. Anyway, when arrogance overcomes us, well, we actually, when we're arrogant, we're seeing ourselves in relation to someone who lacks those qualities. And so arrogance arises. But we should see ourselves in comparison to someone who's much greater qualities. And that can actually help us to reduce our arrogance because, well, these qualities are all relative. In relation to someone not having them, we label special qualities. But in relation to someone who's got much greater of these qualities, we label, well, inferior qualities. Now it's only in relation. So in relation to someone who doesn't have them, they may be special. In relation to someone who's got much greater qualities, they're inferior. Now, how can I be arrogant if in and of itself it's neither superior nor inferior? And I'm only labeling it on the basis of those who do not have those qualities, then I'm calling myself superior. When in comparison to someone much greater, I don't have them. So, in other words, if we suffer from arrogance, well, just compare yourself to someone who knows better, who's got whatever we are proud of, whatever we feel arrogant about, another person has in greater measure. All right. So this is how far we get, or this is enough for this time, this weekend we spent together. What time is it now? It's 15
4:34 here.
4:34.
3:34.
All right, we've got an hour to go. Oh my gosh, this is something I never face. I finished the text before I finish. Usually it's the other way around. No, never mind. All right, so basically we finished this part of the text. And what I want to do is with what we learned so far and this is of course according to the instructions given by Geshe, for instance, that we use those first 4 chapters. Well, we still have to do a meditation, and we'll do that. But then after that, to use these misconceptions, having applied them to our own life, now we utilize them to generate compassion and love for others. So I want to actually end this, sorry, excuse me. I want to end this weekend with uh, taking the mind towards love, compassion based on those misconceptions. So there's no point in starting with chapter 5. We'll do that next time. I don't want to start it and then be halfway through, since it all builds, one verse builds on the basis of the next. It's better to have that continuity, but using it the way I just described. Now, before we'll do that, let's spend some time meditating on what we've just done, what we just did. So 93, including 92, no, 93. From 93 to 100, again, applying this meditation to ourselves. And I may sometimes stretch it a little bit. Of course, you're welcome to go back if this applies to yourself. In some cases, I just feel it may be easier to stretch it a little bit, since not many of us, I assume, are kings and rulers. Okay, great. So let's start the meditation with a little bit of breathing. Now, if you search into your own mind, do you find yourself to crave a certain standing, to have a certain status in society, being respected by others, be in charge of others? We may actually crave being respected, being in a certain position of power or control. But let's face it, that means we have the responsibility to look after others. But that leaves us exposed, since there's no one to protect us. And the only way to make this meaningful would be to seek protection from the Dharma. In fact, right now, we cannot protect anyone from suffering. And instead need to rely on the methods provided in Buddhist psychology that, when applied, can actually protect us from suffering. And once we live the Dharma has become a part of our mind, then we can protect others. Until then, being in a position of power and control will do us more harm than benefit. Also, being famous, leaving a legacy after we've died, or even being famous before we die, is completely meaningless unless it's used to benefit others. It doesn't remove our non virtues, doesn't purify negative actions, but rather creates circumstances that lead to more negativities, more craving. And what's the point being famous for anything other than virtuous actions? So it's not appropriate to be arrogant, feel that we're special just because we have power and wealth. Since they are just the result of virtuous actions that anyone can accumulate. A fortunate situation we find ourselves in right now is the result of virtuous action in the past. But who knows how long they last? And when a negative karma ripens, that takes away all that. In what way are we special in that we have so little control over the ripening of the different types of karma? And let's not forget that the differences we see between different people, dividing them into classes, they're merely man made. They're subjective classification of people. They have no basis in reality. Since we share more similarities with others than there are differences between us. And what we share with each and every sentient being is the potential to purify our mind and reach the enlightened state of a Buddha. And even though we may feel that certain characteristics make myself special, make me more special than other people, we should realize that there's nothing intrinsically special. that we are an individual with mind and body that finds itself in certain circumstances merely due to karmic actions and karmic results. And even though I may feel I'm superior because I can give so much to other people, well, the one thing I cannot give is my non virtuous actions. And who would accept those anyway? And lastly, let's not forget that any virtues or any positive quality that I perceive myself to have and therefore generate a sense of being special, of being more important than others, that is only special in relation to those who may lack that particular quality or may have less of it. In comparison to others, I'm actually inferior. In comparison to those who have greater qualities than myself, there's nothing left for me to feel arrogant about. And of course, most importantly, whatever qualities I see in myself, positive or negative, they're merely labeled based on other phenomena. And my distinction between I and mine and others and theirs is also just based on a label and not found to be objectively true. making arrogance and self-centeredness totally unrealistic. Now, in conclusion, focus your mind again on any insight you've gained from this meditation. To make a deeper impact on your mind and thereby allow it to influence you in your daily life. Okay, so please arise from the meditation. Okay, so one question. Are there any questions? Because if there's time, well, this would be the time to answer questions. Are there any questions you'd like to ask? There are? Did you?
I wanted to share something. First of all, thank you so much. So much stuff to think about today. But I wanted to share something that I thought about in the last meditation. In the past, I used to appreciate people with a title next to their names: professor, head of departments, prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
In the last few years, I started, due to the Dharma and experience of age, to appreciate kind people, patience, generosity, people with good heart.
Mm-hmm.
But in this meditation, all of a sudden it came to me that even people with power, wealth, have gained it due to merit they accumulated in previous lives or this time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot to appreciate. So it's a lot of stuff to work on and try to develop equanimity.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't feel compassion, even though I knew that I should. I couldn't feel compassion to people who have wealth and power, and they're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
It's a change of different way of look.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Yeah, well, it's part of the process to, I guess, go through all our perceptions. We're stuck in certain ways of looking at things and maybe just undoing some of our old patterns and look at things newly. And definitely, yeah, well, equanimity, so important. Yeah. Okay, great. Anyone else?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, please. Mm-hmm.
In regarding to pride
Mm-hmm.
and arrogance and so on, I work in education now because I got stuck in Israel. So as a part of my job, I also have to be responsible on when I see someone that is working with me that since I study education and I have some years of expertise in expertise, whatever, when someone is not behaving accordingly because of lack of experience of I don't know, some people who work as computers, they know it, so just some talents that they have previous lifetime. I don't know. I guess this is something that I was born with regarding to education. And so for the children, you have to put limits. You have to say, this is okay, this is not okay. Because when you can see a situation can get worse, not out of arrogance or pride, just knowing that I have experience. I feel like I'm apologizing even by saying this, because we put sometimes emphasize on those things. And then if you have a little bit more knowledge and then you say, maybe I should take the lead on this, then it's sort of like verses like this make you feel like you are not okay.
Yes, yes. I get that. I get that. No, it's this difficulty. I mean, dealing with the first step is to deal with our own attachment and arrogance and all that. And then we're in this difficult situation where we think, am I arrogant now? Am I taking on this position out of arrogance? I don't want to do this. So there's this conflict that arises. It's similar to we shouldn't insult people, but sometimes we find ourselves, we have to tell people the truth. And it may be come across like an insult, but we still have to do it. So should I not do it or better do it? It's always a conflict there. And it's a good kind of conflict here because I think we reflect on our own type of mind. We know we don't always have a pure motivation, and being put in a position of power, of course, arrogance can arise, and it shows we're on our toes, we're careful. We may have to take on a position of authority. And there is danger, of course, that we show arrogance, but this is the greatest opportunity to see, do we still have to work on our arrogance? Right? I mean, when else are we going to find out? I might think of myself as the humblest person in the world because I'm just like a little mouse just in the corner. No one knows me. And I think of myself as humble. And then I'm put in a situation where and suddenly I realize, oh my God, all that pride and arrogance. How would I have found out unless I was in that situation? So see it as an opportunity again. It's just like with practicing patience. We have to be around obnoxious people to know how patient we are. We have to be put in situations like that to see how much work we have to do. And instead of running away, no, I don't want to do this, I have to face my own arrogance. Well, great. Oh, I actually have quite a bit of arrogance there. I didn't know that, but I do. How great. I got a great opportunity to turn this around now. And to be humble despite my position. So it's a challenge, it's hard work, but it's only hard work because we have to face our own demons, so to say, right? So it's a good opportunity.
I guess my question within this is like, well, then should I not say anything, and let this person just do damage, as far as I see it? That's the thing,
It depends on the circumstances. If you believe telling this person, if you think that telling this person will benefit them to make things better, if you were that person, just put yourself into the other person's shoe, would you want to be told? Right? And of course, you're not this person is not you, but all you can do is put yourself into that person's shoe. So then would I want to be told? How would I want to be told? And then to the best of your ability, tell them. And if they get upset with you, well, that's also all right. You learn from your mistake. And if you have pure love and compassion, if you can hold that, and of course that's impossible to always hold it, but to try to the best of your ability to have pure care and love for this person, then it's okay, even if they become angry with you, because if it at some point push them in the right direction, well, that's reward enough. And maybe in the end it backfires. It was not a good idea. Well, you've learned your lesson. I think still put yourself in the other person. Would I want to know? I mean, sometimes we have to tell people truth that they don't want to hear, and we have to be very careful about them. But I've said this in the past, to be careful to also appreciate their positive qualities, to make sure we always praise them for what they've done right, to always emphasize their success, their good qualities. And then, of course, no one is perfect. So there's something that I noticed, it's not a big deal, but I thought maybe you want to know. I think there's a skillful way of telling people so they don't feel underappreciated, right? And it's still always difficult. It will always be difficult, I guess. Yeah. But well, it's part of life.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. I'm actually looking at you. Does it seem like I'm looking at you? I never know where to look. there or there?
It's always shifting, so it doesn't really matter.
I know, that's why I can't.
Maybe I'm somewhere else than you see me. So
No, you're
that's
looking at me.
Zoom.
You're looking at me, but I don't know where. Okay, never mind. So next person. Anyone else? Other questions, if you have any?
I have a
Yes,
question. It's just
please.
slightly light.
Okay.
Okay. When you said, first of all, I want to thank you very much to the teaching. When you say take it to your life, so usually I can't do it when things happened. I can do it just afterwards when I'm sitting with myself. And then sometimes I feel really like kind of excitement, like, wow, it's changing, I'm changing, yes. But then the feeling of me still remain very strong. It's me changing. That's it.
Yeah, well, it's like you're talking about my experience. It's the same for everyone. It's the same for me too. This is a slow process. It's a slow process. And what you're doing is, well, exactly. Oftentimes in this situation, I find myself in the same situation when my emotions are high and then when I'm upset, when I have attachment. In that moment, I can't do anything, but I can wait until they've calmed down, and then I go over it again and I make changes then, which will influence me in the future, hopefully. But sometimes it feels like I'm taking one step forward and three backwards. It's a constant process. We have to keep doing it. And there are little successes. There's nothing easy, there's nothing harder than change our own mind. And the self grasping that will remain with us for a long time. Eighth ground bodhisattva. Eighth ground. So if you've already entered the path of accumulation, already you're moving there. But let's face it, that's going to be with that for us for a long time. And we're just making slight differences. But of course, even these slight differences are rewarding. So never mind, don't focus so much on, of course, self grasping is still there, but we're working on reducing it. And if you look back a month, a year, 10 years, well, you definitely see a difference. And yeah, focusing on that, I think. And just trust me, I'm in the same. I've got a different haircut. I got a different uniform. And when you talk, you could have been talking about my experience. It's the same thing. It just takes time. All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. Maybe one last, well, unless there's something urgent. Well, more than one thing urgent, so you're welcome to go ahead. I don't see everyone actually. I only see a few people. Okay, that it seems that was it. Again, you're welcome, of course, to say something, to ask, or to just make a comment. But if there isn't anything, I'd like to take the opportunity, of course, now to bring forth love and compassion in our mind, in particular with regard to those four misconceptions, because not only do we suffer from them, but even worse, countless sentient beings suffer from them. So I say even worse because I'm just one person. My suffering doesn't carry the same weight as the weight of all these sentient beings. And in my case, I feel at least I've met the Dharma. I found methods that can help me slowly in that really long process, but nonetheless found methods that can help me to reduce these problems. However, other sentient beings, they're stuck in their situation, have no interest for anything. Well, definitely no interest in the Dharma, the majority of people, as evident in this world, for instance. So therefore, to take a moment, and again in the form of a meditation, to reflect on these four misconceptions we've gone through and taking them as a cause for us, or as an aspect or a possibility for us to generate more love and compassion. So to understand that people's nastiness and negative actions that usually trigger, well, aversion and possibly hatred, they come out of these misconceptions that cause them to suffer so much more than those people who they affect by their negative actions. All right, so let's do that. And again, in the form of a guided meditation. Okay. So I hope you've still got some energy left. There's more meditation now than there was yesterday, but hopefully it helps us to find a way to internalize what we've learned. First, just watch your breath to calm the mind. Now let's take a moment to take into consideration all these limitless sentient beings, in particular human beings, who are caught in their own drama. And the last thing on their mind is their own death. They push away the thought of their own death because it just scares them. And in that way, deprive themselves of the possibility to prepare for the most important time of their life. Until it catches them unaware. They pass on in horror and fear and possibly aversion and anger. They live their lives without much meaning because they fail to reflect upon their own immortality. Creating so much suffering for themselves, unnecessary suffering. So generate compassion for all these sentient beings, holding on to permanence, holding on to their own immortality. with a wish, may I be able to free them from that misconception. And to do that, may I become fully enlightened. To help them overcome that wrong view. And then take to mind those countless beings who believe that which is actually in the nature of suffering to be lasting happiness. They're obsessed about their body. Starve themselves undergo countless surgical procedures to change the shape of their face or to straighten a wrinkle. Pump themselves full of Botox and spend endless hours just trying to beautify their body. What a waste of their incredible mind and their incredible potential. Only interested in superficial pleasures. Using up all the positive karma they've accumulated to be born with certain opportunities and leisures. And instead of accumulating more positive karmic actions for the future, they engage in negativities, believing that to give them more happiness, more satisfaction. To generate the wish for them to be free from the misconception that believes that which is in the nature of suffering to be in the nature of lasting happiness. May they be free from that misapprehension, and may I attain the state of a Buddha so that I can effectively help them to overcome this wrong view. And then think of those endless people everywhere who are driven by their sexual craving, not just people, so animals and other living beings. Driven by a misapprehension when it comes to the object of one's desire, believing that to be intrinsically pure and pleasant. Being driven by their cravings and their endless desires. Without ever experiencing any lasting contentment or satisfaction. Running after one pleasure after the other. Not able to let go and explore the actual nature of their mind. May they be free from their wrong view as to believing that was just impure to be pure. Believing that was just limited to be meaningful. And not only may they be free from this misconception, but may I attain the state of a fully enlightened Buddha. And help them to overcome this wrong view. And then lastly, think of all those who are under the control of their arrogance and conceit, believe themselves to be more important, more precious than others, holding on to their power and their wealth. And in that way, accumulating endless negative karma, destroying everything that gave rise to their power and their wealth, the virtue they accumulated undoing that and instead creating the causes for great suffering in the future. Driven by their arrogance and their craving for being special. Having power. To generate the wish, may they be free from this misconception, their own arrogance, their own conceit. And may I attain the state of a Buddha so that I can teach them, I can lead them away from that wrong view. And now in conclusion, having meditated on the individual misconceptions that are truly responsible for the different types of suffering, let's deepen our determination to continue, however hard it is, to continue on the path, to eventually purify my mind from all these misconceptions and replace them with true love and compassion. And eventually to attain the fully enlightened state of a Buddha. For the sake of countless sentient beings with all these different misconceptions. And of course, since time is up, well, very important, let's of course also dedicate this virtue to others. Dedicating it towards our enlightenment is just as dedicating it to the welfare of all sentient beings. And doing that, of course, dedicating it towards all those who are suffering right now. Again, dedicating it towards those who are sick, like Tali Lubin. May she get better soon and totally overcome her illness. And likewise, all other sentient beings who are suffering right now. And we'll have the opportunity to reflect more on that in the form of Shantideva's prayer. But most importantly, let's dedicate it towards our own enlightenment. And in that way, be most effective in our dealing with other sentient beings. Okay. So we do the dedication prayer first, the 3 that are already there, but maybe if you can scroll up a little bit, there's one missing. Oh, there's only that. Okay, never mind. Then that's just that. Those two are fine. Through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings, without exception, into that enlightened state. And then if you scroll up a little bit, may the precious Bodhi mind. Yep, thank you. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And then Shantideva's prayer. Great. Okay. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food, may the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. Oops, where did it go? Oh yeah, there it is. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, well, we did it. The first 4 chapters. I was worried we wouldn't finish them, but we did, in fact. One thing I'd like to say, I have a bit of a hard time with this camera thing, so I hope this was not too irritating. I don't think I ever looked at the camera because the position of my computer, I have this little cardboard box that I have it on, and it's got just the right position so I can see on the screen and can read comfortably, but I never really look at the camera. So this may be very irritating, and I apologize if that's the case. Okay. Anyway, so we're done. I wish you a great week. Some of you I may see again tomorrow for the other class. I'm definitely will have the opportunity to finish the next 16, 14, 12 chapters. So we've done 4, and I guess it's realistic to do 4 at a weekend. So it may take us 4 years, but I mean, we should practice this our whole life. So what are 4 years? Or whenever, whether it's a year in between or whenever we have the chance, we'll continue with this text. In the meantime, be well, and please try, well, to the best of your ability, of course, to make those verses your own. Okay, so right now I'm looking at a ceiling. Someone is there with the ceiling.
Thank you, Geshe. Really, thank you very much. And I will take this opportunity also to thank Lorda and Gila, and of course yourself for helping us and bringing this wonderful text.
Well, thank you as well for being the moderator or whatever, the organizer. So thank you for that, being in charge.
It's a true pleasure.
Lovely. Okay, well, then I'll say goodbye. Time is up.
Bye-bye.
And
goodbye. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gisela. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you, Geshe.
Hi, Gila. Bye.
Bye-bye. See you
Bye.
tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye.